When I think about siblings fighting, I really do think we start with that acceptance that it is a normal struggle, and then come at it instead of the perspective of like, I've got to squash it, see it as an opportunity for you as a parent to help your children learn how to deal with it, because conflict is super normal. And one of the things that we do as Montessorians is we integrate it into our curriculum.
That's right.
And I think it's a unique part of Montessori. Not a lot of general teaching philosophies. I'm not going to say none of them, because some obviously, like, there are other teaching methods out there that incorporate a lot of social learning as well. But Montessori is unique in that we build it into our curriculum in ways and places where you normally wouldn't think of it occurring. So one example of this would be within our practical life curriculum. We have an entire curriculum. We can just kind of pull this whole thing out right here. Let's see, these are level 4. That's going to be lower L. Let's take a look at our primary. Can you just pull out the practical life? Within the practical life activities, which, if you're brand new to Montessori, are those super popular activities that you've probably seen on social media where children are pouring things back and forth. Or maybe there's a cute little setup on a tray and there's some tongs and some beans or something children are transferring. Or maybe you've seen a very small child sweep up a spill with a broom. Those are all practical life activities because they're practical things that we do in our daily lives that we don't necessarily think children need to be taught. But there is a subcategory of practical life that Montessori guides know that you probably wouldn't really necessarily know if you were just learning Montessori from social media, primarily just looking at those images, because it doesn't really feature very well on social media because it's a role play. And that is our grace and courtesy lessons. So it's actually a whole, I don't know if you found any cards in here that were labeled grace and courtesy. There's one. So here's an example. This is an example of a regular practical life activity that you probably have seen before. Rug rolling, buttoning, snapping, zipping, so self-care.
Yeah, so these are the more, I don't know, when we think about practical life and you're cruising the Instagrams or whatever, you're going to see depictions of this kind of stuff because it films easily, right? It looks cute, but there's a lot within the practical life domain that doesn't really film as easily, but super important, and that would be your grace and courtesy lessons. Things like, or on our card here, these are level 1. Blowing one's nose, coughing, sneezing, yawning, opening and closing books, decorating the peace table. So things related to grace and courtesy, how to sort of carry oneself. And these would be lessons you'd be teaching to a 2-year-old.
Yeah, so grace and courtesy lessons are very, very powerful because it's an opportunity to teach our children these skills, maybe even before or sometimes after they've experienced them in real life. So think about the classic example that's in our primary curriculum, and it always makes people laugh, is Maria Montessori herself did this very dramatic lesson on blowing one's nose appropriately. And she did this, just sit down in front of the children and demonstrated how to properly, and I imagine she did this while wearing her Victorian garb, blow one's nose, into a tissue. And or probably a kerchief, in the time, it would have been a kerchief, right?
That's right.
And at the time, the children were fascinated because they'd never seen anybody actually demonstrate how to do such a basic skill. And here, Maria Montessori, the very fancy, beautiful lady, here she was coming in and showing the children how to do this kind of gross,
rude thing.
This rude thing, right? But the children, she found, and she kind of thought, and we laugh at it today because it's kind of a silly, lesson, but I think that she thought that the children would think it was funny. Like, she came in and did this big dramatic presentation thinking that the children would see kind of the humor in it and just, go along with it. Like, okay, that's how you blow your nose. Haha, it was kind of fun, right? But instead, the children were overcome with gratitude. And some of them began to cry, and they came up and they hugged her and they thanked her for giving them this lesson on how to blow one's nose appropriately. And she herself was overcome by emotion because she realized like no one had bothered to teach these children this very basic thing before, like, and they felt grateful because now they wouldn't have runny noses and just be making a big goopy mess of things. They now knew the proper way to be in polite society, right?
Or just practice some basic hygiene.
Yeah, and so
take care of
that's,
themselves.
That's not necessarily about discipline or siblings exactly, but Maria Montessori, this was like the beginning of the grace and courtesy development of this part of the practical life curriculum. And so after having this experience with, teaching the children how to blow their nose, she realized, oh, there's so many other lessons that we could teach children about how, I think we think of it as like manners, or being polite out and about, things that you need to know in order to get along with other people and to kind of behave in a way that's accepted by your culture. And so grace and courtesy lessons can be very, very different depending on where you're from.
True.
In some cultures, maybe you want to teach children how to handshake, how to shake someone's hand. In another culture, maybe it's a hug or kisses on the cheek.
That's
or, there's just a million different types of lessons that we could give children about how to behave or present themselves when with other people. And a component of that is being with the people who are in your intimate community around you, and that includes siblings. And so there's lots and lots of grace and courtesy lessons that you could give your children to help them with that sibling dynamic.